This episode of The Witch Wave is brought to you by Dear Women. Dear Women is your source for ritual teas, beauty secrets, and magic potions. They offer tea blends such as De-Will-De-Witch for increasing dreams and intuition, and natural beauty products like their dark violet Luna Daga lip balm. And you can get 40% off their concoctions by using offer code WITCH on their website, dearwomen.net. That's dear, spelled like the animal, women.net, and use offer code WITCH for 40% off today. Today's episode of The Witch Wave is brought to you by Witch Baby Soap. Do you like to dwell in the shadows but stay squeaky clean? Then Witch Baby Soap is the soap for you. They make fabulous occult-themed body products like coffin-shaped bath balms, tarot card soap, and crystal-embedded body butters. Their recipes are made with magical intentions, and they're free of all of those nasty things like sulfates and parabens. And now you can get 15% off orders using offer code WITCHWAVE. That's WITCHWAVE, one word, on witchbabysoap.com. So get ready to wind down, lather up, and get some Witch Baby Soap products using offer code WITCHWAVE now.
The world is filled with bewitching people, and you might be one too. Welcome to the podcast where art is magic is real, and reality is stranger than dreams. I'm Pam Grossman, and this is The Witch Wave.
Hello and welcome to The Witch Wave. Spring is finally springing here in New York, and it is so glorious to see the sun shining and people starting to parade through the streets with more vim and vigor and in far more colorful fashions. The cherry blossoms are going crazy here this week, and for me, that's always a sign that the holy day of Beltane is just around the corner. That's right, Beltane is on May 1st, and it is such a lovely day to celebrate flowering, fertility, love, lust, and sweetness in all its forms. You might be familiar with the version of Beltane or May Day that has people circling ribbons around a maypole in a sort of phallic dance. You might have seen it on Wicker Man. I hope that if you do some maypole dancing, you do not suffer the same fate as the protagonist in Wicker Man. But I digress. In ancient Rome, landowners would encourage sex in their fields on Beltane, as they believed it would encourage a good harvest later in the year. Some people in the pagan community have expressed discomfort with this holiday because they believe it to be so heteronormative and so focused on coupling and, well, boning. But there are so many other ways to celebrate this holy day. Beltane is a day of feeling awakened and aroused in all kinds of ways, not just sexual. It's a day for being in love with the blossoming of the world. It's a time to celebrate our lust for life. The word Beltane comes from the Celtic sun god Bel, whose name means bright one or shining one, and the Gaelic word Tane, which means fire. And so Beltane roughly translates to Bel's fire or fire of Bel. It also marked the peak and end of spring, and believe it or not, the beginning of summer. Bonfires are traditionally burned for Beltane to honor the sun's ascent and encourage solar warmth and light. And there's a great tradition of people jumping over the fire to cleanse themselves of diseases and bad spirits with its holy smoke. Now, if you can't jump over a fire, then lighting a candle to honor the sun is a lovely replacement. You can even jump over the candle, just be careful. Or you can do some sort of smoke cleanse in your house by burning sage or incense or some other holy wood or resin. Think of it as a deeper sort of spring cleaning. And yes, Beltane is a holy day of tenderness, union, and love. I confess I'm partial to Beltane because it's when Matt proposed to me 8 years ago, and he did it without even realizing it was Beltane. He is way more magical than he realizes. But even if you are not celebrating romantic love, it's a splendid day to celebrate love of beauty, of nature, and of the things that are flowering in your life. Beltane is also traditionally a day of the fairy and elf folk, also known as the Fae, or if you want to be proper Irish about it, the Is She, which is spelled Aossidhe. Is She. Now, unlike the cute little cartoon fairies that many of us grew up with, these fairy folk could cause all sorts of mischief if they weren't properly honored, appeased, or protected against. Traditional fairies were said to originally look like ghostly or astral beings. The winged creatures that we're familiar with didn't actually appear until the Victorian era, when various artists did new renditions of them. Whatever their appearance, the fairies or the She were tricksters. You had to be careful what you wished for from them, and you had to be vigilant against their pranks and disguises and theft. However, they were also sources of immense magic and wonder. The great enchantress of Arthurian lore, Morgan Le Fay, was said to have derived her powers from the fairy folk, and King Arthur himself, in some tellings, is said to be buried in the fairy realm. Virtually every culture has trickster characters, from Coyote in Native American tales to Loki in Norse mythology to Yoda in Star Wars. They are characters that, despite their tricks and deceptions and confusion, or maybe because of it, are here to teach us sacred truths. Lewis Hyde, author of the book Trickster Makes This World, describes tricksters as boundary crossers. He writes, quote, "The trickster myth derives creative intelligence from appetite. It begins with a being whose main concern is getting fed, and it ends with the same being grown mentally swift, adept at creating and unmasking deceit, proficient at hiding his tracks, and at seeing through the devices used by others to hide theirs. Trickster starts out hungry, but before long he is master of the kind of creative deception that, according to a long tradition, is a prerequisite of art." Unquote. It's this sacred trickster energy of the She that is great to channel at Beltane. Clowns, shamans, bards, and other beings have always used humor and trickery to help keep their communities aware, alert, and awake. Through pageantry, glamour, and cleverness, tricksters help us plug into our own sense of play, of not taking things too seriously, and of not being complacent. So this Beltane, I hope you have fun with illusion, levity, and delight. Go ahead and honor your own fae, your own sacred trickster. And if you can laugh while you're doing it, then all the better. Now, some of you know I'm pretty obsessed with drag, and the more I learn about it, the more I've come to realize that it is its own kind of sacred trickery. As RuPaul says, you're born naked and the rest is drag. Drag queens and kings show us that everything is illusion, and that because of this, we all have the ability to poke holes in the fabric of reality whenever we like, or transform it entirely. It's its own sort of witchcraft, an act of shape-shifting that entertains us, challenges us, and teaches us using the tools of glitter, glamour, and lace front wigs. And that's why I'm over the moon that on this episode, I get to speak with Louisianna Purchase, drag witch extraordinaire. We discuss drag as magic, as well as Louisiana's boundary-crossing identities as a practicing witch, a fierce queen, and a queer man with a penchant for the dark arts in all their forms. But first, let's check and see what's come through on the Witch Wire.
Who is it?
Witches.
Michelle writes, I live on a sweet little farm in rural Appalachia and enjoy tending a small flock of chickens and also goats, a horse, and a German shepherd. After 3 years of free-ranging my chicken flock with no incident, I've just dealt with the first fox attack on the farm, which took the life of one hen and seriously injured another. I am currently nursing the maimed hen through her injuries, and her outlook is guarded. I am frustrated and heartbroken to say the least, and I feel very threatened by this bold and brazen fox. After reflecting upon the incident, I cannot help but think this may in part be my fault. I'm coming out of a particularly bad winter in which my depression has taken a serious toll on my mental health and well-being. This year has been particularly rough, and I've indulged my illness by letting my thoughts go to very dark places. I think in doing so, I may have welcomed this negative force into my life and onto my farm. I find this particularly disconcerting, as I've always been drawn to the fox and have considered it one of my familiars. Beyond improving predator protection through traditional means, I immediately began searching for a protection spell that specifically relates to flock protection. Do you know of any guides available for the use of sigils in ritual? Ooh, oh, Michelle. Okay, so there's a lot here that I want to talk about. I hope your chicken is doing all right. I'm sending her lots and lots of love and healing energy. But I want to start off first by acknowledging what a badass you are, living in the country and farming and contending with creatures both domesticated and wild. As a city mouse myself, I am in serious awe of you. So let's get down to brass tacks regarding your question. There are actually two things that I want to address in your note. And the first is this idea that you have that this fox attack on your chickens is your fault, or that your depression and dark thoughts have somehow caused this to happen. Now, I completely understand why you might draw that conclusion. We all hear this law of attraction, you get what you put out there message in lots and lots of places. There's that book, The Secret, that popularized it. In very broad strokes, karma is you get what you put out there. Or even in the Wiccan message, which states that what you put out into the universe with your magic will come back to you threefold. So I totally get why you might be concerned that you've somehow manifested this in your life. And I totally agree that when we're focusing with great intent on an outcome or a vision, sure, that energy can come back to you and hopefully in great and amazing ways. But let's say you were focusing on hurting your neighbor's chickens or crops or your neighbor, and then this happened to you. Okay, maybe I'd agree that you had it coming. But let's be clear. Sometimes shit happens. No matter who you are in this life, you are going to have hardships and rough times and surprising and sometimes horrible crap come at you out of the blue. It sucks. And yes, we have to figure out how to deal with it and, if possible, sure, how to prevent it from happening again. But sometimes this stuff is entirely out of our control. I don't believe that you caused this fox attack any more than I believe that when people get cancer or hit by a bus or stub their toe even, that it's necessarily always their fault. We all have bumps in the road, sometimes huge Appalachian mountains in the road that we have to navigate. And I believe those bumps are here to teach us something. Those mountains are here for us to climb. I wonder if there's a way you can reframe this metaphorically or spiritually. Today we're discussing sacred tricksters, and the fox is definitely one of those. Maybe it showed up to teach you something. Especially since this is an animal you feel a kinship with, I'm wondering what message you can draw from it. If you relate to the fox, perhaps it is that you are sometimes your own worst enemy and need to stop attacking yourself. I don't know thing one about foxes and raising chickens, so I'm the last person, admittedly, to give you agricultural advice. But perhaps there is a way you can lovingly feed the fox something else, or set up a lovely altar for it somewhere else outside that will both attract it and honor it and keep it away from your chickens. Or hell, maybe you just need to fortify your hen house in the same way you need to fortify yourself against the predatory voices in your head. I don't know the exact answer here. But I do know that in the times when we're struggling, whether with depression or self-abuse or sickness or whatever, these are the times when we need to approach ourselves with the most compassion and tenderness. You did not cause the fox to attack your chickens any more than you caused your depression. Nature happens, but you can choose to treat both yourself and the fox with love and tenderness and carefully considered strategies that will keep these predatory thoughts and creatures at bay. So on to your actual question, which is about sigils to protect your hens. There's a new book out by Laura Tempest Zakroff that you might want to check out called Sigil Witchery. Now, it may not address foxes and chickens specifically, but it will teach you how you can come up with your own sigil for whatever purpose you wish. As with all magic, when you're crafting your sigil, just remember to trust yourself, follow your intuition, and put out good intentions. I'm wishing you and your chickens, and yes, even your fox, all the very, very best. Now, on to my guest. Louisianna Purchase is a witchly drag queen based in Texas, though she performs all over the dang place. She's the co-creator of the monthly horror-themed drag show called Die Felicia, She's a member of the drag troupe Poo Poo Platter, and she's the host of a weekly RuPaul's Drag Race viewing party at Austin's Downtown Joe's. As a practicing witch and an artist, Louisianna incorporates dark and magical aesthetics into her performances, and she's attracted fans worldwide, including people like Kat Von D and Chelsea Wolfe, the latter of whom she's opened for on tour. Louisianna has been crowned Austin's best drag performer by the Austin Chronicle for 2 years in a row, and I'm convinced that that's just the beginning of the many accolades that this enchanting queen will be manifesting for herself. Louisianna Purchase joined me from her hometown via Skype. Louisianna Purchase, welcome to the Witch Wave.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
I am just thrilled beyond belief that I get to talk to you, especially because you and I have been circling each other for many, many years online, but we've never actually met or spoken, so it's a delight to finally get to do that.
Same here. Yeah, we've known each other online for quite a while, and I'm so excited to do this. I'm excited to talk with you.
Yay! So I want to dive right on in. Certainly, we're going to talk a great deal about drag, like probably everyone else you talk to. I am a RuPaul's Drag Race aficionado, obsessive weirdo.
Yay, that's awesome.
Yeah, so definitely want to talk about that. But I actually wanted to take a step back because you first came on my radar as a visual artist via your gorgeous paper cut works that you were doing.
Thank you.
Yes. So I would love to, first of all, have you talk a little bit about your paper cut artwork, if you could describe it, and then how you pivoted into drag.
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to school, art school dropout, really with a concentration on illustration. And after I dropped out of art school, I didn't touch art for a long time, and then kind of came back to it just, I guess, out of boredom. And I read a book about Hans Christian Andersen and how he was a master paper cut artist. And I was like, oh, they're like silhouette work, paper cutting. I'm going to give that a go. Total fluke. And I just took to it like a duck to water. It was fun for me. It was exciting. I liked giving myself the kind of caveat of like two colors, like really giving myself parameters and seeing how much work I could do within those parameters. And also, you know, I love macabre things, you know, I love spooky things. And I was like, wow, you know, that'd be a great way to interject my kind of love of the macabre and kind of like maybe darker themes or motifs in a kind of like classically like Victorian, very kind of like proper art technique. And so I did that for years and, you know, had the great fortune to like show my work in galleries. And
yes, I got to show your work in a show called Lunation several years ago about the moon. And I loved your piece so much. It's now hanging on my wall. I was looking around our apartment. I think I have like 5 different pieces of yours, you know, some prints and, you know, a paper cut. I have your book. I mean, I'm just a huge, huge fan.
oh, thank you so much. Yeah, you know, and all while I was doing this, I was living in a really rural town in Louisiana along the Gulf Coast, consisting of about like 500 people. So for me and my artwork to kind of have that reach out into the world was just mind-blowing to me, just doing something that I really loved doing. And I continued doing paper cuts for many years and, you know, commission work, and I got to design, you know, tour T-shirts for like Marissa Nadler and, you know, all these great opportunities and, you know, doing something that I love. And was very happy and content doing that. And then it kind of, like all artists, after, years of doing it, I was kind of like, well, I want to do something maybe kind of new. So I was kind of at that point when I met my current partner, which was in February of 2013. We met through OkCupid, total fluke.
Nice.
And he has been doing drag for about 13 years. His drag name is Louisianna Rhapsody.
Excellent.
And so we first met at the drag show that he produces here in Austin, Texas. And the show was called Poo Poo Platter. And I met him, never had gone to a drag show in my life, had never been in drag, nothing. And I just thought it was the most funny and just irreverent. It just hit all of like the pleasure zones for me, the show. And then I met him. It was a Friday, and we decided to have our first date on the following Monday. And we got together at my place and ate pizza and watched Drag Race. And we've been together ever since. We celebrated our 5-year anniversary in February. But what I started doing was going to shows with him and like helping carry bags and like helping him with whatever he needed. And slowly my friend base became these amazing drag queens that were part of the troupe and also, friends of his. And so as we inched closer to October of that year, I was like, I'd like to give this a go. Can I like do a performance? And and he was like, you've never done drag. You've never been in drag makeup. Like, what are you going to do? And I just had this gut feeling that it would be fun and I could pull together something, worthy of the stage. And so he reluctantly let me be in the show. And thought of, right. Good job, Leanne. And, I picked a name, Louisianna Purchase, which a lot of people think, oh, how quirky, like a little history buff. Actually, Louisianna Purchase is the name of Louisiana's EBT card. It's called the Louisianna Purchase card.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
So I'm named after the food stamp card of Louisiana. When I lived in Louisiana, I was on it. I was on the card. So, no shade towards that. But everyone thought it was really funny. And I, picked my song to make my debut, and I performed a track by Pharmacon, and it was called Crawling on Bruised Knees. And it was like a 6-minute track, and I had set a Bible on fire and vomited blood and, did all these like wild and crazy things that I thought was like really fun and like really exciting. And the crowd just was silent. They were so freaked out and shocked. I came away from it because I'm a Capricorn, very type A personality. And I walked away like, oh, I felt like I had no control on stage. Like I didn't like it. I don't like this. I don't think I want to do this.
Okay.
And everyone was like, oh, okay. You gave it a go. November comes around, no drag. And then December pops up. And one of the members of Poo Poo Platter was going to do a number and wanted to do it as a duet. So she asked me, would you please be my duet partner? And I was like, and she was like, it would be really fun. So I was like, okay, I'm not like, the eyes are not on me. This is not my performance. It'll be fun. I'll be like a fun addition. And then the bug bit me like hardcore after that performance. And I've not taken a month off of performing since then. So I've been doing drag nonstop since December of 2013.
How fabulous. And, I remember when you started doing drag and I was really excited about it because, in my, I wouldn't say hugely extensive knowledge compared to a lot of other drag fans, but in my knowledge base, it strikes me that there aren't a ton of queens, and maybe this has changed, but aren't a ton of queens who really stick the landing in terms of having, oh, this is going to be shady, but in terms of having taste and
a dark kind of magic aesthetic. I mean, certainly Sharon Needles like had a bit of a witch vibe, and Sasha Velour has a bit of a witch vibe, but I think of you as really more in that, and not to pigeonhole you, but you really do kind of hit all my pleasure buttons when it comes to the witchy, the gothic, the occult. I mean, certainly there's some retro aspects that I've picked up on too, but I was so excited to see Louisianna be born.
Yeah, I definitely, I can preface the kind of how I got into drag story with, I had started watching the season of Drag Race. My first season, viewing it, was Sharon's season. Mm-hmm. And she definitely, I was like, oh my God, like this like spooky queen, came, just appears on this great show and wins the crown. And it definitely gave me kind of a little bit more kind of like drive to well, if she can do it, I can too. And thank you for all the compliments as well. I definitely approached drag from a visual art, kind of viewpoint where, in drag, more is more. You have the baubles, the rhinestones, the big hair. And I approached it really with a sense of wanting to keep Louisianna very edited. Mm-hmm. Really kind of clean looks with still keeping it within the kind of really macabre noir realm, and mixing it with, my other influences too. But again, not to be super shady here, but a lot of queens that you see in the quote unquote horror realm are doing kind of spooky drag.
Yeah, it's very monstrous. It can be a little gory, which is cool, but it's not totally my thing.
Right, and it sometimes it comes off a little, no shade to Hot Topic, but it comes across a little Halloween, Hot Topic-y, mall kind of and I was how can I take what's a huge part of me, this love of kind of darker themes and darker elements, and especially, aesthetic wise, how do I take that and really make it something that feels organic and also feels exciting to me? And the fact of just keeping it very edited and clean, and maybe drawing from aspects and influences that were maybe not as obvious. One of my favorite aesthetic visual influences are the Jean Rollin vampire films, Fascination and Lips of Blood. And, the women were just, had these, beautiful hair and wore these beautiful gowns, or in these sheer capes and robes. And, the antithesis of a Hot Topic or more is more aesthetic. And I was that's the field I want to plow. That's the direction I want to go, is 60s, 70s kind of horror. The ladies were glamorous vamps, and I was okay, that's what I want to do. That's the sweet spot for me. And in the world of drag, and especially here in Austin, there were absolutely no other queens doing that. There were definitely spooky queens and queens that were kind of in the same realm, but no one doing exactly what I was doing here. And I think I can attribute that to catching people's eye when I first kind of came out the gate.
Absolutely. But it's also that, again, taste level, and I'm very biased here, but, even the songs that you choose, they're by these incredible artists. I mean, I was just going through some of your videos online, and it's, it's Stevie Nicks, it's Susie Sue. You've done drag tributes to Tori Amos. It's, Cocteau Twins, Chelsea Wolfe, on and on and on. It's not just the kitschy stuff. And I love the kitschy, campy stuff, don't get me wrong. But I love that you have this very sophisto-witchy kind of dark and very contemporary aesthetic. I think it's so, so captivating.
Thank you so much. Yeah, music is a huge part of my life. I was in a band many years ago, and music has always been, even in my visual art, music has always been a huge influence, and I've had the great opportunity to work with a lot of my favorite bands and musical artists. And so, yeah, I have a pretty good musical taste level, if I do say so myself. And I've also been really fortunate to open for a lot of my favorite bands and perform at concerts, which here in Austin, definitely I'm the only queen doing that. And, I've had the great pleasure of opening up for Drab Majesty and Chelsea Wolfe and Youth Code and all these amazing bands, and being in music videos for some of my favorite bands. And I like that I didn't, for lack of a better word, dumb down my musical selections when I perform. And my sweet spots are definitely like that 80s, like kind of like gothy synth pop, all the way to, like Formicon and Chelsea Wolfe and things like that. And, I thank you so much for the compliment, because that is something that tends to get mentioned a lot with my drag, is my musical choices. And I'm real serious about the songs I pick to perform. And that is something I've kind of been a real, I refuse to do the top 40 hit just so that I can get tips, at a show. I'm like, no, I'm going to perform this song and I'm going to turn it out and you're going to love it.
Yes. Well, it's obviously working for you. And we're going to take a quick break, Louisianna, but I want to talk more specifically about drag and illusion in just a moment. Today's episode of The Witch Wave is brought to you by Blood Milk Jewels. I have loved Blood Milk for years because each piece of their jewelry has a story that adds to its aesthetics and talismanic qualities. Their designs are inspired by seances and surrealism and shadowy goddesses and so many more of my favorite things. They use materials like sterling silver and natural crystals and gemstones such as moonstone, labradorite, and onyx. And so each piece is crafted to be psychic armor. I also love that they've been handmade in Philadelphia using local resources since 2008. And that it's a female-owned and operated company. So check out bloodmilkjewels.com and adorn yourself with dark, sparkling beauty. Welcome back to The Witch Wave. Today I'm speaking with drag queen Louisianna Purchase.
Hi.
Hello. So Louisianna, this is The Witch Wave podcast, as you know, and I am guilty, of course, of looking at everything through the lens of witchcraft, but the more I get into drag, the more parallels I see between drag and witchcraft. And I know RuPaul famously talks about the drag queens as the shamans and the tricksters and the sacred clowns of today. And so I'm wondering, do you see parallels between magic making and drag, especially given a lot of your prior interests and art motifs?
Absolutely. And I, definitely am very proud to say, I am a practicing witch. I have everyone who knows me, who's friends with me, knows that. And I definitely see a lot of parallels. And I am so excited to talk about this because I never get asked about this stuff. So, what drag queens are doing, we're physically manifesting. We are changing ourselves into, we're changing the air around us, and we're changing our physical appearance and creating magic and producing another world and in and on stage and creating an atmosphere for people. And I spoke with a drag queen, a really good friend of mine from Portland, and she was saying how in some areas of witchcraft, drag queens and, like feminine men are kind of like the gatekeepers because, we might have male bodies or, present ourselves as male, but we also have that other side of us that is very feminine, and when I do talk about this amongst friends, they mention, they're like, yeah, like in craft, throwing a glamour. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, it's like that. I am manifesting a new form for myself. And then I go out at night and I am this creation. I am this person. I am manifesting my agenda. I am making magic happen around me and the people that I interact with and on stage. And
you've shape-shifted, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. And that is how, like when I'm putting on makeup, I very much get into that. When I pick out costuming, pick out my wig, what kind of song I'm going to do, I'm creating magic. These are all my ingredients for my spell. And then, the act of shaving my legs, shaving my face, putting on makeup, getting in a corset, all of that. This is my actual physical manifestation of my spell.
That's beautiful. It also makes me think of, we've talked before on the show about the idea of glamour as magic. And of course, the idea that everything's an illusion and how reality is malleable, if you will. And I was thinking this morning about the, I believe it's ancient Hindu concept of the Maya, Maya, of, which means illusion. But I was looking to find the derivation of the word, and apparently the word Maya used to mean like extraordinary power and wisdom. And so the idea of illusion and magic kind of being two sides of the same coin is very, very intriguing to me.
Same here. It's one of the most, and this is why when I started drag, it definitely it grabbed me by the throat and it shook me and was like, this is what you were meant to be doing. This is your world, honey.
Yes.
Was that, especially in the early days when I didn't really have, my makeup skills have improved since when I first started. But, just the acting of this going into drag very naively, knowing really nothing about it and just kind of magpieing my way and grabbing bits and pieces and forming my character. It was all very, my approach and my beginnings in drag was very deliberate and specific, and I just see it all as gathering your ingredients for spell work. And also, whenever we go out, whenever I am, full done up, Louisianna purchase, and I go out and you can see whenever people approach you, the actual tangible magic that is happening. And, people come up and shake your hand or want a hug or a photo, and they're just entranced by you in your drag queen form. And it all is just magic to me. It is, and then, you come home and you take off the lashes and you wipe off the makeup, and I'm left with this feeling magic was made tonight. What I had in my mind, the inside my brain, how I imagine, the performance would go, or my look, or, anything like that. It was, spell work achieved. Yes. And then, I'd come home and put Louisianna to bed for the night, and I usually favor Taco Bell and watch Netflix.
Like a good witch does. So I was also thinking about how with witches, many of us take on a magical name. Sometimes it's a secret name. Sometimes it's a name that's used only in our coven. But that struck me as another similarity. And the idea, too, of wearing your ceremonial garb. I mean, same thing. When I'm in coven or I'm gathering with people or I'm doing a ritual, the space has shifted. I've transformed myself. But then, of course, I come home and I shift back into the material world and I watch Netflix, too. For me, it's usually sushi or ice cream, not Taco Bell. But, we each have our thing.
No, I am on board with you on all those points. It's even, the drag queens. I belong to a drag troupe here, as well as, I do my own shows and travel all over the U.S. performing solo. But, we're sisters. We're drag sisters. My best friend and fellow drag queen, she performs as Zane Zena. We have matching tattoos that say sis, SIS. And it is like being in a coven. And, we hold each other. There's very special places in our hearts for each other because we create our magic together. And there's a very special bond with people that, you do your work with. Your spell work, your enchantments, and
that trust, right?
Yeah, it's, I trust the girls that I perform with, and it is a total sisterhood. And it's a special bond whenever you perform with people. And these are the people you bounce ideas off of. And one of the most exciting things for me that I really just get a huge jolt of excitement with is we also hang out outside of performing and outside of drag, and just sitting down like over lunch or over a coffee or what have you, and like coming up with ideas for shows or coming up with, looks and performative ideas. And it really is like meeting with your coven, planning out magic.
And it's very initiatory too, isn't it? Because, you were saying you've gotten better with your makeup. You kind of, you enter this sisterhood and you're just a little baby drag queen, or, a lot of people, when they approach me, they call themselves baby witches. I don't know what the equivalent would be in the drag scene. And there are drag mothers, I understand. And
yeah, totally. Yeah, we call them baby queens. Those are the newbie queens that are just, you can see them out. They're like little deer in their high heels. They're all very kind of,
just covered in amniotic fluid.
Exactly. I came up sans a drag mother, so I learned a lot of stuff by watching other queens and also, quite honestly, YouTube tutorials. But I am a drag mother. I have 12 drag kids.
Amazing. Are you kidding me? So you're number 13. So that's a coven too.
Right. That for me was, doing visual art was a very solitary thing for me. I didn't create, it was very, very few and far between I would collab with other people, but it was a solitary, very interior thing for me. And then moving onto drag, where you have a drag family, these are your drag sisters. And it was the biggest thrill for me, because I think I had only been doing drag for a year and a half, 2 years, when the first person approached me and was like, I want to be a drag queen and you're my favorite drag queen. Will you please be my mom? Aww. And I was shocked, and I was like, oh my God, yeah. And my drag children, they're cis male, cis female, across the board, trans, all these people approach you with the hope that you'll take them under your wing and kind of like push them in the right direction. And that's what I've done with all of my kids. And I put them in face, as we say, for the first time, and showed them, how I do makeup and give them tips and pointers. But the main thing that I feel is more important than that is I try to impart to them performative ideas. Like, my big thing with drag is makeup and looks. That will evolve. You'll develop that. What you need to do is connect with an audience. I teach them kind of, for me, what is the most magic about drag, and that is going on stage, creating an atmosphere for your audience, and having them be completely enveloped in your world for that 3 to 6 minutes, however long the song is.
Oh, that gives me chills. That's so, so beautiful. And it gets me right back to that illusion point. Like, I was thinking about drag queens as sacred tricksters, and in mythology, like in Norse mythology, there's the god Loki. In Native American mythology, there's Coyote. I mean, I would say Yoda in Star Wars is a trickster, and it's that idea of humor and irreverence to show us that, like, everything is an illusion, and yet there are great truths that come out of that, right?
Exactly. And, it's funny, when you try to, I guess, look at it logically, is that, I perform in Louisiana, like, as an actual human being, like, doesn't exist, so much like in the physical plane. She is definitely me, and I'm the vessel for her. But, it's, that so correlates with drag. Is what is reality? Reality is what you make it. It's your reality. And that is, I guess, kind of like one of the essences of drag and of magic, is convincing that audience that this is reality. Like, this is my world, and convincing them and showing them and having them enjoy it and having them be into it. Because there's no greater compliment than after a performance and someone comes up to you, and, the compliment I tend to get given most is, oh my God, like, I was captivated by you while I was on stage, or you have such a great stage presence. Like, I really felt like you were connecting with us. And that is my number one goal in drag, is to get on that stage and be like, this is reality now. This is my world, and it is very real while I'm on this stage, and I want you to be a part of it, and I'm going to bring you into my world. And you're going to love it.
Yes. Oh, it sounds so mesmerizing. I want to hear more. We're just going to take another quick break, and we'll be right back.
This episode of The Witch Wave is brought to you by Zoo's Incense. They make exquisite hand-rolled incense cones with natural ingredients sourced from 5 continents, and they never use synthetics or charcoal. I've fallen nose over heels in love with their many magical blends, such as their Moon Mix, which is made from myrrh, sandalwood, and orris root. Go to zoosincense.com, that's Z as in zebra, O-U-Z as in zebra, incense.com, and use offer code WITCH to get free shipping on orders over $20. Let Zoo's Incense transform your space into a sanctuary.
Welcome back to the Witch Wave. Today I'm speaking with Louisianna Purchase, drag queen from Austin, Texas. So, Louisianna, you were talking about transforming your audience and bringing them along, in this really bewitching, captivating kind of spell casting way. But I am curious, how do you find yourself changing or transforming? Like, does Louisianna bring out something different in you? Are you connecting to some kind of divine feminine energy? How do you kind of make sense of Louisianna and your non-drag self?
Such a great question. Well, first of all, being Louisianna, having the facade of Louisianna, and getting to develop her and getting to live in her world has definitely just given me in my own day-to-day life a lot more confidence and a lot more strength. I kind of view being in drag or creating a drag persona as like, as a queer kid, I loved the women in comic books. Like I was a huge fan of like the Huntress and all these great female comic book characters. And for me, creating Louisianna and being Louisianna, it's like, it's a dream come true because I get to create the ultimate female archetype persona for me. That
yes.
and it's like, I get to be a real life, like, superhero. And so definitely it's given me just a lot more confidence in my day-to-day life. And also being Louisianna has been such a cathartic and healing thing for me, especially when I first got out the gate. I was able to use her as a conduit to work through a lot of things on stage, heal a lot of hurts, celebrate a lot of private joys that, unless you knew me personally, you wouldn't maybe necessarily get during the performance. But using her as a tool to heal, and then when I found my strength through her, then going, okay, well, she, being Louisianna has, it's healed these hurts. Now let's see where we're going to take her. Now that we have that base kind of like good and solid, now let's see what she can do.
Oh, that is so, I am getting choked up listening to you talk because, even when I'm watching RuPaul's Drag Race, some of my favorite moments are when some of the queens are talking about their past and their history and, a lot of the wounded places that some of them, if not all of them, are coming from. I mean, we're all wounded, aren't we? So
yeah,
I just, and the ways in which, when they explain the ways in which drag has healed them and allowed them to accept themselves, which is kind of ironic, right? You create this other character and it helps you become more yourself.
Yeah, as growing up a queer kid, and especially a very effeminate queer kid, I grew up in the Deep South. I was the first child. My parents didn't know anything about being gay or what to do with me. And I grew up feeling very ugly and not just physically, but like all aspects of me were wrong. And everything I wanted or dreamed of was wrong. And I was constantly told that. And I was told that, I would never find love. And so you grow up with just like this blanket of like shame. And becoming a drag queen, I'm celebrated for all of the things I was told as a child that were wrong with me. And I went into drag probably at one of the darkest times in my life, where I felt very broken, just emotionally and as a person. And drag, hands down, saved my life. It saved me emotionally, and it helped me develop into a much stronger, much wiser, and I feel much more open to love and to give love. I think the first year I did drag, I would come home and probably cry after every performance because it was such an emotional release. And it was so surreal to me, and just such a, I couldn't wrap my head around at the beginning, like, that I was so celebrated for the things that I was told were things to be hidden. I didn't have the best childhood, and I didn't have the best young adult life, and really felt like lost. And so, that's why I went into visual art, was because I could escape into my own world. And I started doing Louisianna to escape. And she turned it all around. And now it is something to project and celebrate and have out in the open. And I'm very proud of myself as a human being and as a day-to-day person. And I'm very proud of Louisianna Purchase.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. That it reminds me of that principle of alchemy, of turning the base lead into gold. It's like you've transmuted your pain into this like wondrous, beautiful, bewitching creature. And it's just such a lovely, lovely story. I'm so happy to hear it.
Oh, you're welcome. Quite a few other queens have found their strength, have found their voice in drag. And it's not, my experience is not special so far as, I'm the only one that's experienced this. But it gives these young queer people a voice, and also a sense of power. I'm creating Louisiana's world. She is my creation. She is me. I am allowing the parts of me that I've locked away for so long to come to the surface. And to, and as much as I enjoy and am touched by being celebrated as a performer, seeing someone else, drag for me is still the most magical art form. I can see a queen perform, and when I can see a performer on stage and I know she is there and she is present and she is sharing something really beautiful, I still get choked up at drag shows. I've seen I don't know how many drag shows, and it is still one of just the most moving art forms for me, because it's a universally, there are universally shared truths within the queer community. A lot of us face not feeling beautiful, not feeling right, not feeling that, we belong. And the drag community, my local drag community, and now the larger drag community, when they embraced me, I fell into their arms. And it's, at the end of the day, whether I do drag for 20 more years or 2 more years, drag has changed my life, and it has made me, I feel, a better human. It's made me a better witch. It's made me more compassionate. It's given nothing but positives to me.
Oh my goodness, that is just so, so beautiful, Louisianna. I'd love to talk just a little bit more about just the relationship between your spiritual practice as a witch and your drag practice. Are they kind of flowing into each other now, or do you still kind of feel like you're in a different zone depending on which pointy hat you're wearing?
No, yeah, I definitely feel that, I'm able, everything that I celebrate or that, I manifest, it's, you put on different hats for different things, whether, whatever needs to be done. And Louisiana's the same way. I know going into a performance, whether it's going to be like a really emotional very touching performance, or something that's a little bit, more kind of like macabre or spooky, or maybe something that's a little bit more like enticing. You get into that mood, and being a witch and invoking that, the spirit of that, or invoking the mood of that, definitely made it easier for me in drag to get into that headspace. And my drag and my spiritual work, my witchcraft, it's all very, very intertwined. And definitely Louisianna as a character, she is a witch too. And I feel very spiritually fulfilled doing drag and performing on stage, because there always is an intent in my performance. I don't like to just like go on stage and be like, okay, throw on some Gaga and I'm gonna do some split.
Right.
I like to have intent with every performance that I do. And it's the same thing with my spiritual practice, whether, it's a friend who, is feeling really down or needs help, I'll set up my altar, with the intentions, of like bringing light and love to this person. And the same thing with drag. It's all about intent. And the same mindset I go into at spiritual work is the same I have with drag.
I often think about how the witch, yes, she can be a signifier of the divine feminine, but she's also kind of the symbol of the ultimate outsider, the person who feels perhaps like an outcast, or the person who feels like they're living in the margins, or that liminal space of in-betweenness and not quite belonging and feeling solitary, and then finding and building their own covens and communities. And I think it's no kind of accident that when people are admitting that they're witches, we say they're coming out of the broom closet. And so it doesn't surprise me that, it's not just women who gravitate towards the archetype of the witch or who can embody the witch. It can be anybody who wants to plug into that certainly divine feminine aspect, but also to reclaim those parts of them that felt like an outsider or felt ashamed or felt in the shadows. Does that resonate with you at all? Or
it definitely does. No, you kind of like hit the nail on the head once again. The popularity of drag in the like mass media notwithstanding, that's what drag queens are for their queer communities. We are the storytellers. We tell the truths. We heal the hurts. We make everyone have a good time. We are our community's like soothsayers. And that is how I've always felt about drag, and was one of the reasons why, when the bug really bit me, I was like, oh, wow. Like, my spiritual practice definitely, it was like kind of like every little box has been ticked. And for all intents and purposes, drag is like kind of at the height of its like popularity. But, at the end of the day, when that goes away, we still are, we're the witches for our community. And I can still walk down the street and get like called a name and still get, harassed. So it's like, it's still in some aspects underground.
I think a man dressing as a woman is always going to be subversive because, or as long as the patriarchy is in charge of us all,
And that's a powerful thing, is that, especially with the state of the world right now, femme power is the most subversive, beautiful thing that you can use to, take down the shackles. And when I say femme power, I think anyone can, I am also definitely a very vocal feminist and an inclusive feminist. Whenever I say women, I mean anyone who represents, who represents as a woman, as femme. And also, that's also what I love about drag, kind of like what you said about witches as well. There's straight women, cis women. There's straight cis men. There's gay men. There's gay cis women. There's, non-binary people, just any and all walks of life, trans performers. It's welcoming to everyone. I know, at least at my shows and the drag that I produce, is a complete like open door policy. If you want to do drag, I don't care what physical shell you identify as or come in as, I want you to perform. and so that, I don't know. I also feel like, I'm sticking it to the patriarchy, and that like I am all about emboldening and representing that feminine power in whatever shape that it takes.
Yes, and we need it so badly right now. So I'm just so grateful that you exist, Louisianna, and I am dying to meet you in person and see you perform sometime. Are you coming to New York anytime soon?
I will be coming back this year. Dates are being talked about and thrown around right now, but if anyone follows my Instagram, I always post show flyers or when I'm going to be in your town. I'll be in Los Angeles May 10th through 14th for RuPaul's Drag Con, and I'll be doing some performances around the city. And then I'll be back in LA in early June, and then off to Philadelphia for something very, very exciting. I can't quite talk about it yet, but keep your eyes on my Instagram, and it's basically a dream come true what's going to be happening in Philadelphia. And then New York will be up. I'll be in Portland in December. Yeah, I'm kind of getting the, I guess, later summer, early fall dates kind of solidified. But yeah, I'm going to be doing a lot of traveling, and anyone that knows me online or what have you, if you come to a show or see me, please come say hi and talk to me. I love meeting everyone, and it's just such a thrill that doing this, what I love to do, has afforded me, it's my full-time job. It's afforded me it feeds me in all aspects. Physically, it provides food, and also it feeds my spirit. So it's like,
oh, congratulations. And I know it takes so much hard work to be able to get to that point. So what a thrill. That's wonderful. So Louisianna, just on a final note, you're telling folks to follow your Instagram. Would you mind telling people what that is and how to spell it and all that good jazz?
Absolutely, yeah, because it's a little bit different spelling. So if you would like to follow me on Instagram, it's at Louisianna Purchase, and it's spelled LouisiannaPurchase. It's the two N's.
Double N in Louisiana.
Yeah, it's a little funny story. It was misspelled on the very first flyer for the first show that I appeared in with two N's. And I thought it would be funny. I was like, oh, people can just call me Anna. And that did not happen. People just call me Wheezy.
Oh my God, that's awesome. Well, I have to say that for Google metrics' sake, this is a much better name because, we're not going to just get the Wikipedia page for the Louisianna Purchase. So well done, universe.
Thank you, universe.
All right. Well, I should let you go into the ether, Louisianna. Thank you so much for the beauty that you conjure into the world and for taking the time to speak with me today. It's been just such an honor and such a joy.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. This, I don't really get to talk a lot about these subjects. And so this has been just an utter joy and such a thrill, and getting to speak with you, and I appreciate you so much.
Oh, back at you big time. You take good care, my darling.
You as well.
That's it for the show. Thank you again to Louisianna Purchase for joining me. I can't wait to catch her magic next time she flies through New York. Do you have questions, feedback, need some witchly advice, or just want to share something magical that happened to you recently? Drop me an email at witchwavepodcast@gmail.com and you might make it on the Witch Wire. The Witch Wave is produced and recorded by me, Pam Grossman. This episode was edited by Chiquita Pascal, thanks Chiquita, and myself. Our theme music is by Lycanthia. Special thanks go to Matt Freeman. You can check out information about this and other episodes on our website, witchwavepodcast.com. Will you just go on ahead and subscribe to us on iTunes, please? And will you just go on ahead and give us lots of twinkly magical stars? Because it really, really makes a huge difference. I'd be so, so grateful to you. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And if you have an iPhone, you might dig my witch emoji for iMessage. Fill your texts with witches, spellcraft objects, and magical symbols in a variety of skin tones, genders, and colors by searching for Witch Emoji, all one word, in the App Store or by going to witchemoji.com. Thank you so much for listening. Witches are the future. I'll catch you next time on The Witch Wave.